Welcome back to the Nerdy Dad Bodcast. My name is Levi Bullard, or DM Dadbot on social media, and today is the 13th episode, so let's play in the Sandbox, not on the railroad. Now, if you're wondering what I'm talking about there, is essentially the DM style that you should have is more of a sandbox game than a railroad. And if you're asking, what are you talking about, I'll break them down for you. So railroad or railroading is when a DM takes almost all of the player choice and agency away from them. They will decide that the players are at a fork in the road and the players decide they want to go left instead of exploring right like the DM had planned. So the DM just takes what was on the right side and moves it to the left, ultimately nullifying their choice. Or if there was an NPC that he thought they were going to talk to that was going to give them a key piece of information, but they never did, he forces that NPC into their way. Now, sometimes that can work, but you don't want to jump in front and take away all the choice and agency from your players. In a sandbox game, you essentially give most of the choice to your players, where they want to go, who they want to talk to, and it's a lot of improv and it's a lot of player choice. Usually it's going to be crazy and the players are going to have way more fun than if you force them down a story that you want to tell. If you want to tell a story, you realistically should go write a book. You might be saying, well, how can I set up a sandbox game? How can I make sure I'm not railroading my players? Well, one is to know your world really, really, really well. Because if you know what's in every town, what's going on, at least in the close proximity that your players can reach, then you're going to be able to let them choose to go wherever they want. Remember, you can have certain monsters or factions pop up wherever, but let them choose what they want to do and where they want to go. Find a realistic way in that city that you can accomplish what you needed to. Don't just tear them away and put them in where you wanted them to be or who you wanted them to talk to. Find a different person. Find another means that they can do, or they can find out the information that they need. In a sandbox game, you want to be very flexible. You want to be able to improv a little bit. And I know that's hard for some players, but if you can't improv, the second best thing is to be very knowledgeable. And honestly, the knowledgeable part is where I excel, not in the improv area. Now, I also try to incorporate a lot of events into my world. So every region has its own holidays and events, and it just kind of makes it more immersive. And everywhere that they go, there can be something going on. A lot of the times I like when they roll up to town and there's a festival or a parade going on and they get to see the spectacle that's happening. Essentially, I take it as like when Thor shows up and he's watching the play with about him and Loki. Now, if you're wondering, now we never want to railroad our players, at least most of the time. And if you're not improving at all, you're probably railroading your players. Even if you are a very studious DM and you have prepared for this for months, you're going to have a level of improv when you let them just decide what they want to do. I would say if you don't have information on the next couple towns or a good amount of NPCs, then you're probably railroading your players and making them talk to the few PCs that you have ready. Railroading is not all bad, because sometimes it's just really hard to get your players to get the certain information that they need. So yeah, they'll overhear somebody talking about it. But don't just make them run into or have conversations with a certain NPC because you thought that NPC would be really cool and you wanted them to be noticed. This is about the players after all. And again, if you feel like you're telling a full story and nothing is changed from what you planned, then you are definitely a railroading player. And just start writing a book now. Now, you want to make sure that you tie it into the story. You tie what the characters are doing in so it actually makes sense. You take all of those events and you find some way where it tweaks it. It doesn't have to be big, large scale things or even crazy stuff. It could be a single type of monster attack. It could be goblins attacking the city. Or in my recent or current campaign, spoilers, if you're my players, please click out of this. I'm going to give you a couple seconds to get out of here. Players, I'm going to tell you, get out of here. You're going to ruin everything. Alright, now that you're gone. There's shadows that had attacked the city. Well, they at first weren't aware that shadows can make shadows. Well, when the shadows killed a couple people, they thought it was all and done with, and they had taken care of the issue of the current shadows. Well, that wasn't the case. So they're going off seeking the cultists and everything that they were talking about. But I am sitting here like, okay, these shadows are going to take over. They're going to start multiplying, and they're eventually going to either have to deal with it or bail out of the city. So I'm definitely prepping the next city over in case they do have to bail. Being prepared is part of the Sandbox DM's job. I mean, it is on the railroad too, but you're a little over prepared. Or actually, I would wager to say the railroad DM is underprepared because you're not ready for all the changes that players can throw at you. You're just going to say no to everything because it's not. If you find yourself saying no a lot, you're probably railroading your party. And remember, your players are only going to be interacting with events that are at their level. So if they're 4 or 5, they're going to be acting or interacting with events that are at town's level. If they're 8, 9, 10, they're going to be probably within the region or the continent. If they're doing the 14 and 15, it's going to be the world. And maybe they're having a full apocalyptic event at 19 and 20. But don't try to throw an apocalyptic event at your players when they're level 2. Because they're going to think they can take it on. And that's something that can definitely be hard to do in a sandbox game. You have something awesome planned that you were planning on destroying this town, but your players wander into that town. Do you still let it happen? Some may say yes, some may say no. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. But to sum it all up, if you find yourself saying no a lot, if you find your players saying, can we do this, instead of we want to do this, or we do this, you might be railroading your party. If you want to run a good sandbox game, be well prepared and work on your improv. Sorry for the noise. Until next time, guys, take care. And what's your best tip for getting off the railroad?